Good morning, good day, and good evening. Welcome to episode, I want to say 129 of Tech of a Tea. And today's guest, I don't know, a lot of you might have not seen his face because he's usually just writing stuff. Welcome to the show, Liam from Gaming on Linux. Not just from Gaming on Linux, you created Gaming on Linux. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, man. I don't get an opportunity to do this kind of thing very often, so this is kind of special.
Well, yeah, it seems like whenever someone you know does a podcast, you post on your Twitter account, "Hey, I'm happy to do a podcast." Like when
I like doing them.
Yeah, they're definitely fun. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't really like being on camera too often. I
No, that's
personally
totally fair.
I find it easier just to do audio stuff or writing. It's just nicer for me, really. But then being with other people like you doing stuff like this is cool because I'm not really doing the work behind it. You are, so
Yeah, that's fair. Now, what was this about you saying you had a bad webcam? This did you just find a new camera somewhere?
No, it's usually really bad, but actually recently I've bought, which I've got either side of me right now, some mini studio lights. So the frame rate is kind of okay because it's got enough light on it. So I'm a bit more prepared than usual.
Yeah. Right. The camera that you're seeing, like on the Discord right now, is not the one that's appearing on the recording. That's just there, so you're not staring at a blank screen the entire time. My actual camera is my regular camera, the one I usually use for videos. Just want to clear it up. I know some people tend to think that I'm actually recording with that one. No, this is a terrible C920. It's just I have it in a drawer somewhere. It comes out for these, and that is all.
I think that's what I'm using right now. I'm really bad with numbers and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I've got.
It can look good if you put literally more than 2 seconds of effort into tuning it, but I've got the light set up for my actual camera, so it's like way overblowing the C920, and it just looks bad for the most part. But your setup shows that it can look decent, I guess.
Well, I do have actually another camera. I don't know if this will get in the picture. Oh, it does. I have this big one here, which I use for recording the deck. And honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing with it. I just press random settings and kind of hope for the best.
That's pretty much how I feel. I just get it tuned in a way that works. This is why it's good to use studio lights and have windows closed, because then everything is just good. You just turn stuff on and it just works.
Yeah.
I would struggle having that window open like you have. It would ruin everything I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Should probably close that. Never mind.
Well, it's fine for now. If you suddenly just fade into darkness during the middle of the show, we're gonna know why. That's So why don't you explain? I'm sure most people watching probably know about Gaming on Linux, but if in case anyone doesn't, explain what you do.
So I run the website Gaming on Linux. I write about pretty much anything and everything to do with Linux and Linux gaming. So that includes the Steam Deck now as well. YouTube, Twitch, all that sort of thing. Been doing it for, I lose track. I think it's 12, maybe 13 years. We had a birthday last month. I should know this, but I don't. Yeah, it's been a long time. So I've been there through pretty much every up and down of Linux gaming I think there is. I've been through it all.
So I guess we can just start with what was Linux gaming actually like back then? Because I started using Linux, I want to say 2019, something like that. So well into Proton being established, well into everything, pretty much just being mostly good, but
things were not great back in the day, let's put it that way. I mean, I've been there since there was a company called Loki, and they were kind of like the pioneers of everything because they went along to other companies and ported their games over to Linux. But this is before Steam for Linux was a thing. This is before so many things happened. But Loki was kind of the stepping stone to a lot more, because one of the people, if I've got this right, who worked for Loki made SDL, and he now works for Valve. But then they messed up and disappeared, and then you had Linux Game Publishing, which they also tried to port games to Linux, like the bigger games. And yeah, it all sort of, back then there was basically nothing. And then eventually you had like Humble Indie Bundle. And that was massive, because suddenly you had this huge thing that was getting these really popular games ported, and they were making, millions, but they don't do that anymore. But yeah, back then there was, you had a few open source games and not much more.
Because Steam for Linux didn't come around, because Proton came later, but Steam for Linux didn't come around until the Steam machines. It was a bit earlier than that.
Yeah, it was a little bit earlier. So Steam for Linux was, if I've got this right, 2013 is when it was officially released. And then Steam machines were a little bit after that. Not too much longer after that, though.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now. It says 2015 for the Steam machines. And then Proton, I don't know what Valve was thinking, to be honest. Like, looking back on the history of Valve's approach into Linux, the fact that Steam machines released without Proton at all being a thing that existed makes no sense to me.
Yeah, well, I think back then they kind of, they messed up, basically. I mean, everybody knows that now. Because I think it's two things. They thought they had more market power for hardware than they did back then. And they weren't doing it first party. They were relying on other vendors doing these machines. Well, in fact, there's 3 points. They were then also relying on companies to port the games, which took a long time. A lot of the early ports weren't exactly amazing. And Steam machines, fizzled out because at the start there weren't enough games, which obviously Proton has basically solved.
Yeah, that's definitely, especially now with basically the last problem being solved is being put onto developers, which is the anti-cheat problem. That was the last frontier of things just not working. I know that it's still, it's obviously a very game-by-game basis, but then there are the glibc problems that happen every so often where it just stops working.
Yeah, well, you had that about just over a week ago where glibc put out an update and it broke easy anti-cheat, and suddenly everyone's like, why are my games not working? And that is a problem that we got to solve as well. It's that user space needs to keep more backwards compatibility because it breaks just too often. And that's an interesting point there, because one of the Codeweavers developers, so Codeweavers sponsor Wine development and they work with Valve on Proton. One of the developers, I think it was on Hacker News, put a comment on a post about it, basically saying like Win32, the Windows API with Wine, is basically the stable API for Linux. And back when they posted that, I thought, no, it isn't, or whatever. But you see all these issues keep happening, and then you think, well, maybe they were right, because everything can be fixed in Wine that then fixes every other game, and then it's just fixed. And yeah, it is becoming a more stable target in a number of ways. So, yeah.
Well, Linux, you're always going to have that distro problem. Like, there are certainly distros that can individually address problems. Like, you can have, like, Silverblue, for example. Let's say, obviously, Silverblue is a weird example. You probably don't want to game on that, just because driver's going to be a bit messy. But you can have a system where you have certain aspects of it which are going to be stable. Actually, I guess PopOS is probably a better example. And then the aspects that need to be moving, like the drivers to make sure things are, new game coming out, driver optimization, that those are getting pushed forward. But if we're talking like generally across Linux, you're always going to have, Arch Linux is always going to do something, is going to break something. Ubuntu, it's going to be running ancient drivers and something's going to break. And it's just, Linux is a weird system to be targeting because there's not really any specific thing to target. But I think that...
Yeah, that's been a problem for a really, really long time. And so Valve have tried to solve that in a couple of ways. Like they have the Steam Linux runtime, which is basically, nowadays it is a container full of the libraries that they need for games to work. And developers, can target that. And you can manually, in Steam, set games to be run through that as well. And, well, that's one solution. But then you have Flatpaks as well. And then Snap. And I'm sure there's other things, App Image, and yeah. But again, it is Linux being a weird platform. Like you have these so many different things trying to do the same thing, and that kind of issue is just going to repeat. And it's one of the reasons I moved away from. Well, people are going to hate me for saying this. I moved away from Arch Linux, but there's going to be Arch Linux zealots out there that will say, "Well, you weren't really Arch; you were Endeavour OS." But it's Arch. It's just
think
a
if you're on
fancy
Endeavour,
installer
it's basically
for
Arch. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, all the updates come from Arch. All the software comes from Arch. As far as I care, it's Arch.
If I
But
recall,
it's the breakage.
Endeavour does have like their own repo for some things. Maybe I'm mistaken about that. But like the main core system is Arch. It's not Manjaro, which is questionably Arch.
So Manjaro, they bundle all the updates and then release them as a bundle in the name of stability. And then Arch just throw everything out, and if it breaks, it breaks, and you got to deal with it yourself. And that, as someone who works on it, I couldn't deal with that anymore. I ended up moving to Fedora, and apart from a really annoying NVIDIA driver install, everything else it works so amazingly well. And one day I'll move to AMD, but money and so on. Although technically I'm already on AMD with the Steam Deck, so
yeah, What are you running on your desktop? What NVIDIA card?
The 2080 Ti, which I should retract that because NVIDIA gave it to me.
Well, okay, if you got a 2080 Ti, like you can sort of sit on that one for a while. You don't need to go to AMD. Like you can justify not going to AMD for a while.
Yeah, to be fair though, like people say a lot of bad things about NVIDIA, and that was a joke. Like I don't mean that.
All media ties cut off.
Yeah. Historically, NVIDIA always had the better drivers anyway. They always worked better anyway. It's just getting them installed and updated has been the most annoying thing. And it's still annoying. It's 2022. Why can't it be a one-click thing? It's like you download their installer, and don't you still have to drop out of a graphical shell just to get it done?
I use an AMD card, I couldn't tell you.
Oh, well, there you go. AMD, you just update your system and it's there. Amazing.
Yeah, when I built my system, I was already using Linux at the time. I specifically built it with Linux in mind. I was like, I'm just going to go AMD. With that in mind, my GPU needs a bit of an upgrade. Because when I bought it, I wasn't much of a gamer at the time, so I sort of just bought something that was available. I got a RX 570. I'm still running a
reasonable card though.
Yeah, but compare that to like a 6700 XT. Like, look at the graph, and it's like triple the performance. I can play things just fine, but it's getting to that stage where modern games are going down to like medium, low. I'm waiting on playing Elden Ring just because I want to play it like at a reasonable setting.
So, are you buying a Steam Deck then?
I actually don't know what the deal is with getting them in Australia. I don't have one on order.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't think you can actually get it.
I think you can like get it into the country, but they don't have like, the power. They don't have it set up for being in Australia.
Is this where I basically do something like this to really sort of like annoy everybody who can't get them? Sorry.
Could be worse with LTT's one, where they just tear it apart and put stickers all over it.
Oh, see, I did that kind of with that one.
Yeah, but that looks nice.
Oh look, there's you. Ooh.
It doesn't just have a giant picture of your face on it.
Yeah, okay, it doesn't have that. Don't tempt me. I might do that.
Yeah, but could you stand staring at that all the time? I thought so. How is the Steam Deck? I've heard good things about it, but it's different to hear it from the perspective of a review and perspective of someone who's just generally using it.
It has, honestly. I mean, I've said this before, but it has changed my gaming life, really. Because like a lot of people who work at computers, you don't want to be sat there in the evening You
Yeah.
want to just chill. So sitting in bed or just on my sofa, it's nice. It is nice. And the fact that they could get it at a price point where it plays most things. I mean, yeah, you have to turn down the settings, but
Mhm.
I mean, you can play the brand new Spider-Man on it. What more do you want?
I did see a post about that. That's kind of crazy. And well,
It
considering
is
that's also such
amazing.
a small screen, like you can get away playing on fairly low settings. It's not, you're gonna notice it if you're playing on like a 27 or you're playing on like a TV. You're gonna notice being on like low, but surely it's not that big of a deal on something that small.
No. So I'll just load it up in the background if I can, and then I can show you in real time if it will let me. Right, here we go. Just turn it down a bit.
Can
Right.
we do hardware in
So-
real time?
Yeah, it is honestly amazing that obviously there'll be stuff coming out, and there is stuff coming out that will be more powerful. But you don't get any of the vendor support that you get from Valve.
Mhm.
It probably won't have SteamOS. It won't have the price point that Valve have got on here. Like Valve said in one of their original interviews for the Steam Deck, that hitting the price point for it was, I believe they said, really painful. So they're right near the edge of, I assume, then profitability for it.
They're probably
but
selling
they're
it
gonna
like a
make up for it
console.
from.
Like where they'll yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So you sell it
But
like at cost or a bit under cost and make it up on game sales.
yeah, that is it, because their cut is 30% of all sales until I think it hits like 1 million or 2, and then it comes down a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine they will make a lot more with it as well, because even though like we joke about, I'll get through my backlog on it, but you're just buying more games all the time to play on it. Like I don't think I've cleared anything from my backlog because I'm just going, ooh, look, what does this work? It is absolutely amazing. Right, it's loading up now. So in a second I'll be able to show you. And it's absolutely crazy, the fact that you could sit on a toilet and play Spider-Man. Not that you'd want to. I mean, I wouldn't want to. Yeah, bit gross.
Just play with your feet.
Yeah. I wonder. Don't. You'll make me try it now. Right, here we go. Okay, so if I go back a bit. There it is. It's Spider-Man. Playing Spider-Man. Oh no. But there you go. Spider-Man, the brand new one. But the coolest feature about this, though, this is where it's not going to work. Right. I'm pressing the power button. Now it goes. It's saying bye-bye. Give it a sec, and then press the power button again. And it's not going to work, is it? Hold on. What's it?
This is.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Look,
Oh,
we're
wow.
back already.
I was gonna say this is why every onstage hardware demo is fake, because it's going to break.
Hey, but it worked. It worked, and it only took a couple seconds, and then you are back there in that exact moment. That is my favorite feature. So for anybody who's got any kind of like a busy life, you just tap the button, put it away, and the power use when it's on standby is, I think, only single digits per day. So you could pick it up 2 days later and still have loads of battery life left, and you're at the exact same spot. And that is
for anyone who's just listening right now, who's showing off putting the device into standby and then bring it back on, and it just pretty much boots up like straight away, maybe like a second or two.
Yeah, like 2-3 seconds, and then pop, it's there. It is incredible.
It does sound really compelling. I'm curious to see like what's going to happen with sort of handheld PCs as a market segment, because I know there are like some devices starting to show up, but a lot of them are either really expensive or they're not really designed around gaming. I can't think of anything, at least off the top of my head, that is designed around gaming in the same way that the Steam Deck is.
There are a couple now. So you've had GDP Win, GPD. I always get it wrong. GPD, yeah. they've been doing sort of handheld devices for quite a while, but a lot of theirs are sort of like a clamshell design. So it's got a small keyboard on the bottom, and it's
more like
I don't like the feel of that because it's just a small laptop. And
oh yeah.
you've got there's AYN, who I think it's the AYN Air or something like that. They're doing one more like the Steam Deck. There's another company that's doing another one as well.
Oh,
and
I haven't
Valve
seen
have
this
sort
one.
of Valve have sort of reignited, or even just set the actual starting fire on these devices. And I think there's going to be a lot more of them coming out over time because Valve is showing that there really is a genuine market for it.
Well, I think the Switch is what first revived the handheld gaming market because the 3DS, it didn't do terribly, but it was still that lull in handhelds. You had the DS. The DS was an absolutely incredible device. Everyone loved it. Then you had things like the Vita, and it's just no, it sort of fades out. And you got 3DS, and everyone's now, if they want to play games, are doing it on their phone. But then the Switch came along, and the Switch showed that you can have an actual regular gaming experience in a handheld, and people genuinely want that. Whether it's on the bus or traveling or anything like that. And then Valve comes along and says, why don't we just do it with the PC? And, people are already playing games on PC anyway.
I think that's more the point of it, because it is essentially a full-blown PC. I mean, it has a desktop mode on it as well with KDE Plasma, which is, really amazing. But Valve ignited the PC handheld, really, because it's, the Switch is, well, I own a Switch, and, I do quite like it. It's horrible to hold, though. I mean, it's terrible. It makes your hands clam up, and it hurts to hold. But the thing about the Steam Deck is not only are you able to play games on that, you can play those same exact games with your saved game without buying it again on a laptop or a desktop. And that is such a big added bonus that other platforms don't really have.
Microsoft is trying to do that with their cross-platform stuff, but Valve's cross, what's it called? Cloud saves, that's it. That just, it works seamlessly.
Yeah, so Microsoft are doing the Game Pass. So they've got the Xbox Game Pass and the PC Game Pass, and I think genuinely that is one of the biggest bits of competition, apart from the Epic Store, that Steam has, really. But even Microsoft seemed to get quite a bit on board with the Steam Deck as well, because they put out an official guide for getting Xbox Cloud Gaming on the Steam Deck. They've also been announcing the verification for multiple of their games running on the Steam Deck.
Oh, I missed that.
Yes. Yeah, they put out there was a Steam boast. So because they're a publisher on Steam and they have a publisher page, they can do publish a news post, and they basically put out a big post with loads of games in it saying, here's how our games work on the Steam Deck. And it's when you start seeing things like that, and you have to think, this is a Linux handheld. And you've got these massive companies like Sony as well, they put God of War on Steam, and they were announcing how it was Steam Deck compatible. They just did the same with Spider-Man. It's a completely different world, man. It's amazing.
If we're going to be pedantic, I know someone's going to be, yes, I know the Switch is running BSD. That doesn't matter. It's a proprietary version of BSD. This is full Linux. It's just running KDE. You can use it like KDE. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that is the absolute beauty of it, because apart from the obvious things like the Steam client itself, the Steam Deck is all open source. Quite literally everything about it, the drivers, everything. And what they did with it is something that not many other vendors do, especially in things like the console space and even in the laptop space a lot of the time, is repairability. So before the Steam Deck was released, Valve did their own teardown video of, here's what to do even though you shouldn't, sort of thing. and they're doing spare parts with iFixit, so you can repair it yourself if you want to, and that as well is a huge bonus point.
A lot of people mocked that teardown video, but I think maybe it was just people sort of presented in a weird way, but I think a lot of people misunderstood what was going on. The don't do this part of it, it's like they are trying to make it very clear that, like, this is something that you should only do if you understand what you're doing. Like, they're not saying don't fix it. Like, that's not at all what they were saying, but, like, batteries are dangerous. Please don't pierce the battery. If you're going to tear it down, know what you're actually doing. If you don't know what you're doing, give it to someone who knows what they're doing.
I found it quite comical, really. I thought it was funny. I thought the way they presented it was funny, and some people did take it a little bit out of context.
Yeah.
Like you saw headlines from, I won't say who, but certain headlines were like, "You could die if you open your Steam Deck," and I was just like, oh, for God's sake. Although, whilst we're here, if you're going to open your Steam Deck, take the SD card out, okay? Because otherwise you'll snap it.
Where we?
So,
where was it?
Right, the SD card on the Steam Deck is there, so you can see it, right? So you take the back off, and because it's sticking out, it snaps in half. I snapped a 1 terabyte by doing that, and I was very, very upset with myself.
What does a 1 terabyte cost you nowadays?
Well, that set me back like £150, I think it was.
Wait, there are
so.
Wait,
yeah, I had a few tears over that. I'm not going to lie, but I was quite lucky because it was not only was it a review unit, but it was one of the first ones they sent out as well, and it had like a bad fan bearing or something, so it was making loads of noise. I had to send it off anyway, which is great because the other half of the SD card was actually jammed in the slot and I couldn't get it out. So yeah, it was a double fuck up.
I'm kind of just more impressed by the fact that 1 terabyte SD cards are that cheap now. Like, that's
cheap. No, wow, yeah, I suppose comparatively compared to what stuff was.
Like, I'm remembering when, like, a 32 gigabyte one was a couple $100.
Yeah,
like, sure, it's expensive still as like a relative thing, but compared to where they were, like, it's way cheaper.
Well, they are coming out with like 1.5 and 2 terabyte cards now, and it's just like
wait,
but they're going to be really expensive.
Yeah. Well, for a little bit. Jesus.
But it's quite funny that so a lot of people know who Linus Tech Tips is, obviously.
Never heard of
So Linus snapped his SD card doing the exact same thing, and obviously I didn't learn from that. And I'm sure a lot of people who follow that are on the gaming side know the name Glorious Egg Roll, who does, their GE Proton. They just did it as well. They snapped it as well. Theirs was a 1 terabyte card as well. And it's like, oh my God, like only a week earlier, I put out a video, an article that mentioned, again, take the friggin' SD card out. And it's like, you're seeing other big names now do it. It's like, no.
Looking back on it, it seems really obvious where the card is, but I can totally understand why you wouldn't think of doing that beforehand.
Well, when you're looking at it directly from the back and undoing the screws, do you see the SD card? Okay, yeah, there's no excuse. You see it, so yeah, it's just a rookie error, I think.
Well, no one mentions it in the like early teardowns. I don't believe Valve mentioned it.
No, they didn't. Yeah,
those are like the name. Like, you guys are the people who like have any name online. I guarantee other people have done it. Like, just random people who tore it down.
Yeah. I've seen multiple posts on Reddit, over the course of however long the Steam Deck's been out now. Like, it's only been out a couple months, really. But there's been quite a few posts on the, I say official Reddit, but the Steam Deck Reddit of people doing it. And it's going to keep happening because of the design of it, I think, really. But I'm not sure how they would get around that while also letting you still easily get it in and out. I don't know.
So what you're saying is, if we have a Steam Deck version 2 and you were the head designer, that's one of the main things you'd want to see fixed.
Yeah, because I mean, it's costing people money and tears.
So now that
Mostly mine.
how long have you had your Steam Deck for? I presume since like the first batch?
So the first one they sent me was a couple weeks before it released to the public.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I was one of the first 100, I think they said it was, people that they sent it out to.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is actually my second one, because this was the replacement for the review unit that I snapped the SD card in and had the bad fan.
Right.
And then my other one was my personal one, so the one that I bought, because I kept my reservation, which I think is really a good review of it, is the fact that they sent me a review unit, I could keep it, I still kept my own in line to buy it again. What more a review do you want? I bought one even though I already had one. I've got no need for the other one.
What could you use it for?
Actually, that's a lie. I've got the I don't know how you say this actually. Jesus. How do you say this? Right, how do you pronounce that?
Wait,
it might be backwards for you.
Let's say JSA. What?
JSAUX. Jesus. I don't know, but
I would just say JSAUX. I don't know.
Yeah,
don't ask me. I'm an Australian. I don't know English.
Well, I don't think they're English. They might be. I think they're French or something like that.
I definitely don't know that.
Yeah, well, they've started doing a dock.
Mm-hmm.
So Valve was supposed to do their own official dock where you can plug it in and then put it to a TV, but that's been delayed. So they're one of many companies who are now doing their own. So actually, my review unit is usually plugged into my TV downstairs, and it works surprisingly well on like a 50-inch TV. I will admit. Performance at 1080p and 4K is not amazing, but lower the resolution for what it was designed to, and you get a pretty good experience when it's docked as well.
These are not docks. Okay, this is a terrible article. I look up Steam Deck dock. Oh, here we go. 5 things down, it shows me the first dock. The rest of them are like, hey, here's a. Okay, it says dock. What it is a what do you call them? Like
it's not one of these, is it?
It's literally that. Yeah.
That's not a dock. It's a hub.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, but you can get loads of those for like, I don't know, like $15, $20 or pounds off of Amazon. And the one that I showed there, I did pretty much all of my recording with until Jesus, whatever, sent me the dock. Yeah. But yeah, you can. Yeah, it's fine.
So if now that you've had this hands-on with the Steam Deck, if you were to if you had a direct line to Valve and you're like, these are the things that I want to see change with the second version of the Steam Deck, not software things, those can be updated as we go, but anything that you think is fundamentally wrong about the way the Steam Deck is currently designed.
Well, the SD card slot, move it so we don't snap it, obviously. But most other things are pretty good, though. I mean, it's got a good weight to it. I'm gonna throw it. No, don't do that.
Well, you got another one.
I don't want to break it though. It's my baby.
How are the ergonomics with your hand? I know that some people were concerned with the size of it.
Right. This is kind of one of the things that bug me. So a lot of people have talked about how big it is, and yes, it is big. It's bigger than the Switch, and well, there's no getting around the size of it. But I mean, my hands are tiny. I mean, you can see, but I have no trouble reaching anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's got, you can see the buttons on the back as well. The way you hold it, you just tap them. It's really easy.
Well, they're massive buttons, so you can kind of pretty much hit them wherever.
Yeah, it's the buttons on the back are really good as well, because they've designed them in a way that they've got just enough pressure on them so that you won't tap them accidentally, which is nice. And so the shoulder buttons, like you don't need to put your fingers right across it. You can just tap the corners.
Okay.
So when you like that, you just tap it. Yeah.
Right. So if you had larger hands, you'd go more of like a round grip. But with a small hand, you can sort of like push the edges up and still get it just fine.
Yeah. So you can.
I see.
Let's see. You can go all the way along and click it in. But for me, with small hands, you literally tap the corner and it clicks in.
Okay.
And it's honestly, for small hands or big hands, it's fine. I mean, my 10-year-old has smaller hands than me, and he has no issue with it either. So
okay, it's no excuse then.
So people complaining about it, I don't know what they're on about.
I think a lot of I haven't heard any complaints recently. I think the complaints were mainly just based on the early looks at it and the early reviews. I think now that people have their hands on it, I for sure haven't heard anything. Maybe you've heard differently, but
Well, I think a lot of people were just kind of more surprised about the size and weight to it, because yes, it is big, and yes, you can feel the weight to it, but they designed it in such a clear way that holding it actually feels really nice. Like the Switch is really thin all the way through. It's really thin, and so you are like weirdly clamming onto it. But the Steam Deck has, the nice rounded bits on it, so your hands hug it quite nicely. But there was one reviewer out there who did a video, and they basically coined the term deck neck, because you're sat there like this. A lot of the time you're like staring down at it, and then you're like, oh, which is kind of a problem. Although if I'm on the sofa, I just get a cushion on me, and I'm just sat there like that, and it's fine. It's all about finding your comfort zone to play with it, I think. But then there's also people I know already that are using it as a full-blown 100% computer. There's one person in our Discord who has it hooked up as their main computer now, to a monitor, a keyboard, and everything. And the Steam Deck is amazingly versatile.
Well, it would be no different than running something like Silverblue in that way. Like, it's not set up, as nicely as Silverblue would be, but you can install Flatpaks. You can do all that just fine. Not an issue.
Yeah. So the difference is, though, that a lot of people have been asking why, is that I believe distributions like Silverblue have something where, like a layer where you can still install things, but it doesn't touch the root side, whereas the Steam Deck doesn't have that, which is an interesting one.
Yeah, I was looking in. I was doing research on something earlier today, looking into. I don't know, something that Silverblue came up. It was a video on myths about Immutable distros. Yeah, that's why. And I hadn't actually heard about the overlay stuff until I started looking at this, which I'm not entirely sure how the overlays function and how that's separate from a regular system package. I haven't. I think
it's more along the lines of your packages. You can install packages normally, but it'll go into a user writable area, right? So then when you perform your main system upgrades, it's not touching it.
That would make sense, yeah.
People are already working on things like that for the Steam Deck, though, and I've already seen a couple of them, and it's quite interesting. But I think it was a good idea for Valve to do it, because at the end of the day, the Steam Deck is mostly like a more console experience. You don't want people going in and tweaking and installing every little package and then breaking it. Whereas now you can just install a Flatpak.
Yeah, that was definitely an early concern with when they first announced that it was using Arch. People why are you using Arch? That doesn't make any sense. But knowing that it's OS tree and it's an image-based updating system, it's from a developer perspective, I totally understand why they're using Arch. It just makes it easier to, when they generate the new image, have those latest things available. But from the user perspective, that because of those images, you don't have to worry about that. The fact that it's based on Arch is pretty much inconsequential.
Yeah, no, it is based on Arch, but it's not Arch.
Yeah.
So it's using, all the functions of Arch, but they package all their updates as and when they want them and release them as one thing. So they do have a slightly more Manjaro model in a way, the way that they bundle it and then release it later, but they fully control everything.
Which is probably the only way you could, like, even if you were to base it on like anything else really, like if you went down the Steam Machine model and you did like, you know, Debian again or something like that, I think that the image system is, if you're going to go with a console-like experience, you have to sort of go like all in with that. Like, this is, sure, it's a computer, but you're gonna it's just easier to push something out that we know is the same on every system. So if someone has a problem, then
Yeah.
you know exactly what that user is running. If they say they are using the Steam Deck with whatever version of the Steam Deck software, you know this is what it's running, and you can then try to address those issues.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's giving developers and users basically a baseline of the hardware and the software. And that's all there is to it. It's the only sane way to do it. Imagine a Nintendo Switch. If people could upgrade a random package and suddenly they can't launch games, I mean, it would be a nightmare for Valve to have things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if they went like a couple, if it was a couple of years earlier, the availability of Flatpaks I don't think was really there. But now, like, Lutris is available, and you know, pretty much most things that people are going to want on a gaming focused system are for the most part there. It's not perfect, but definitely not perfect by any means, but
I think that's an interesting bit there, because Valve went with Flatpak. So when you go into the desktop mode on the Steam Deck, you load up the Discover, KDE Discover, and the only things you can install are from Flatpak. So Flatpak is basically winning the next generation format, because they've now got, a device shipping out to hundreds of thousands of people.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
And I think it's great, because I think Canonical, well, I don't know how to put it. I don't like snaps.
This is fine.
I'll just say
this
it plainly.
Is a safe space for hating Canonical. It's okay. You can do it here.
I don't hate Canonical. I think Canonical are in many ways amazing, because
sure. But snaps aren't.
Yeah, exactly. Snaps have so many problems, including. Well, in fact, I had a debate with, I think it was Alan Pope, who used to work for Canonical. I had a debate with him on Twitter about this recently, so I'm not going to go back into that again. I'll just say Flatpaks are great, and from when the Steam Deck has released with Flatpak, the rate of apps going onto FlatHub for people to easily install, I'm sure, has been just continued to grow.
Yeah, I do know a couple of people involved in like maintaining Flatpak. I should ask them about it and see how that's gone down. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'd honestly never thought about that. Like, they do now just have this massive hardware install base.
Yeah. So now, if you want to get your application or, say, third-party game or launcher or downloader, whatever, if you want to get it to hundreds of thousands of people that have a device in their hands and Linux desktop users, just put it on FlatHub. Done.
Yeah.
It's basically solving the app distribution for Linux. And again, it's Valve that have helped do this, I think.
Yeah, well, Flatpaks are basically in the position that Snaps wanted to be in, but nobody wants to adopt them. That's sort of the main issue that Canonical's facing. You've got Ubuntu, which is Canonical's thing, and then a lot of the Ubuntu-based distros are like, stop it. We don't want them. With Firefox,
Linux Mint.
Yeah, well, Linux Mint's the most obvious example, but yeah, they're like, we're just not going to do that. Like, stop it.
The problem with Snaps and Canonical is they largely, in a lot of ways, and I know some people that work at Canonical won't agree with me, but other people, big, higher up people will. For a long time, they completely ignored gaming. In a lot of ways, they did ignore the desktop.
Mm-hmm.
And because they've been focusing on things like the Internet of Shit, of, the Internet of Things. It's the Internet of shit. And Snaps is what they've been using on there, with like Ubuntu Core and stuff like that. They have quite a different audience, which is why they're sticking with it. And they've started doing the Steam Snap as well, which is interesting. That's going to cause a lot more problems, I think, than it's going to solve.
Yeah, when it comes to snaps, I don't think they're an inherently bad technology. Like, I know there's going to be someone out there who likes snaps. I think if we're talking about a situation where you want to deploy... Yeah, someone out there. If you want to deploy to a server, for example, snaps do have their benefits. They do make that a quite an easy process. It's not the only thing out there that does that, but I will give you that on the server side, there are benefits. And maybe you can make the argument on mobile as well, but Linux Mobile is going somewhere. I don't know where, but it's going somewhere. But when we're talking
I don't think Linux and mobile will ever truly be a proper thing outside of Android.
Yeah.
There's no big enough vendor doing it to make enough people care about it.
Well, you can say Android, but wait until Google's like,
yeah,
fuck Android, let's go Fuchsia.
Yeah.
I like that when Fuchsia comes along, yeah, well, they're gonna have their Linux compatibility layer and nothing's gonna change, but they're just not gonna be using Linux anymore. That's what's gonna happen there. But,
well, I moved over to iOS anyway, so it doesn't bother me.
But my main issue with snaps on the desktop is the loop devices. It just clutters the hell out of things like LSBLK. I know you can filter them out, but I don't like all the loop devices being made. I already have performance issues with Flatpaks. Snaps, from my experience, have been worse. I know there's this long write-up series on the Ubuntu website about improving the Firefox Snap performance, and maybe it's better now. I know they changed out the compression algorithm they were using a while back, and that's probably dealt with a lot of things. Those are my main two issues, and the loop device one is a problem that's not going to be fixed. That's like an architectural design of snaps, which is already enough a reason for me not to use it. The performance stuff, I'm sure, can be dealt with over time, and if you want to use snaps, fine. I'm not going to stop anyone from doing that.
Yeah, so I'm the same. Like, I like the idea of snaps and Flatpaks and stuff because, again, container systems, Linux doesn't have amazing backwards compatibility in a lot of ways, like we've just seen with glibc breaking his anti-cheat and so on. And the general idea of it is great, but it's often just the implementations leave a lot to be desired. And so many people just don't trust Canonical, and that is a problem. Even though it might be doing well in the Internet of Things, but I hope Flatpak wins in the end, because we have, again, so many things doing the same damn thing, and we gotta stop it. It's so annoying. I mean, in one hand, it is a benefit because, people make new things that do the same thing, but it might be better, and eventually it might replace the last thing. But yeah, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, there's benefit to the whole Linux desktop fragmentation, but I think there needs to come a point where something comes out on top. And there was a time when I thought for a little bit that was going to be app images, but then I woke up and I stopped dreaming. Then I realized Flatpaks. It does the one issue that Flatpaks have is they technically work for CLI tools, but you shouldn't use them for CLI tools. They are designed around the desktop, and that's where they work the best.
See, Flatpaks do come definitely with their own issues as well that I have unfortunately run into a couple of times. So whether I'm using something like OBS Studio or Kdenlive for video creation and then editing, you don't just have your Flatpak for the application, you also then have the runtimes for the different libraries that they use and graphics drivers as well. And there's been a number of times where I've updated my system. So I've got, say, the latest version of OBS Studio, or the latest version of Kdenlive. But the runtime for the graphics driver hasn't updated, but my actual graphics driver has. So they butt heads between what runtime it needs for Flatpak and my system installed driver version, and then the apps don't launch because there's a bit of lag between drivers updating from vendors and the people behind the Flatpak stuff getting the runtime sorted. And it's not perfect, and these things do happen, but nothing's perfect, and you're never gonna move on and progress and improve these things if more and more people don't use them. And so, again, I'm really happy that Valve picked Flatpak for the Steam Deck because it solved a lot of issues as well about people who want their external software. Like if you want to install games from GOG.com, or the Epic Game Store, because Epic Games, they give out loads and loads of free games. And I claim basically all of them. I'm never really going to use them, but, I like building up my virtual library.
Yeah.
But you have the Heroic Games Launcher, and the people behind that are just amazing. They're doing some really, really good work. So you can get your Steam Deck. Yeah, it's Steam. And then you install all your Steam games, but then you go down to the desktop mode, load up the Discover store, and install the Heroic Games Launcher, log into that, and then you got your GOG and Epic games as well. And that's thanks to Flatpak making it so easy. And so they can release a new version of Heroic, and then everyone gets it at the same time because it's a Flatpak, and all they've got to do is update. Love it.
I've not actually. Do I even have an Epic Game Store account? I don't think I do actually.
Everyone should, just to get the free games. Why not?
Yeah, I've seen like random stuff go through there, and it's just. Yeah, I think the reason I never made the account is just because none of the games just caught my attention. But it's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all.
But there's a lot of people out there that are part of like the Fuck Epic crew, and people are very religious when it comes to game stores for whatever reason. But free is free. Just register an account, get all your games, and then just, if you're on Linux or the Steam Deck, just run them through Wine or Proton or whatever. It's free.
And I think, that's fair. I think a lot of people do get a little hung up on some of the things that, certain people involved in various projects will say. Whether the conclusion that some people come to is correct or not is, sort of up to how you interpret what's being said. I know a lot of people don't particularly like the Epic CEO and some of the stuff that's been said potentially out of context about Linux.
This is a lot of things that bug me about not just the Linux community. This happens in literally any online community or even offline communities.
I'm going to talk about purity testing.
People get, trying to think of the right word, but very religious over things that they like, and it's like the Epic CEO stated at one point about switching to Linux is like moving to Canada. You got to fight for the freedoms that you have now, or it was something very close to that. People took it wildly out of context in the Linux community, saying all sorts of things, but people miss the point so often. And they were just like, the Epic CEO was just trying to get the point across that they wanted Windows to remain as open as it is now for other vendors of stores and so on, and for people to install whatever they want and not be controlled by the Microsoft Store. Really, that was what they were trying to say. But people like to take things out of context and then use it to hate on the Epic Store and so on. But then there's the other side of things, and it's like, I also understand why people in a way get religious in a way about Valve and Steam, because they do put in a huge amount of work about so many things. Like, look at the Epic Store. How long did it take for them to get like a search bar or a shopping cart and so on? Like the absolute most basic features. And what a Steam got, it's got like remote play, it's got Steam inputs, you can basically use any controller ever. It's got, you know, VR stuff. They've got the Steam Deck now as well. And the list of features that Steam and Valve do just goes on and on. And they're also investing into absolutely loads of open source. Obviously, they've got they are doing it for a reason. They're not a charity. They want to make money out of Proton and the Steam Deck and so on. But the point is, they are still doing it out in the open and supporting Linux. So I do get that side of it, but I also think a lot of people just need to get over the whole Epic hate. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a game store. If a game is on there that you really want, and it's not on Steam, and it's a good price, but you want to play it, just buy it and have fun. Who really cares?
If the Linux community is good at one thing, it is brigading projects that just may slightly rub them the wrong way, whether it's canonical, whether it's anything that Pottering has ever breathed near.
I really don't get the System D hate. Like, people go nuts over it, but I'm like, I've basically never seen it. It doesn't get in the way of anything. Who cares?
Yeah, that's sort of the way I feel about it. Like, it would be one thing if System D was unstable. You would know about it because your system would be crashing all the time, but it's not. There are some where I can understand. Like, Pulse Audio, when it first launched, was bad because distros deployed it.
Was a trash fire.
There's two problems with it. It was beta software, and Pottering told distros, stop doing this. It's not ready to be deployed. And also, they deployed it with broken configs. So, if I recall correctly, he described Pulse Audio on Ubuntu as the audio system that breaks your audio. He's the guy who made it. He was literally telling people to stop using it because it's not ready yet. And like that initial impression is going to stick with the project for a very long time. And even now, with Pulse Audio being mostly good, it does have issues here and there. Like, it's software. Every bit of software is going to have issues. But I still have people telling me the same sort of stuff that I can find on forum posts from 2009.
About Linux audio sucking or
something. Yeah, about Linux audio sucking, Pulse Audio being unstable, always crashing. Bluetooth, I can give you. Bluetooth is messy.
Yeah.
But...
Well, you say that, but nowadays you have Pipewire, which is taking over from Pulse Audio. But it's not just focused on the audio, though, is it? It's the video side as well it's trying to do. But it's also unstable in its own ways and has regressions and so on. And that's actually one of the reasons that I moved over from Arch to Fedora, because at some point I had upgraded Pipewire, and then my wireless headphones no longer worked for some reason. They just played some sort of weird static sound whenever audio was played. So we're not quite there yet in a few ways, but I mean, you compare the audio on Linux now compared to, let's say even 3 years ago. It is amazing compared to what it was. And that does bug me that there is a lot of outdated information that people keep parroting, whether it's on Twitter, Reddit, and so on. And it doesn't help, but what you can do, it's the internet.
Well, this is why I make videos. Like, you gotta...
Yeah.
Someone's gotta put the information out there. Someone, like, for example, libadwaita, where people still think you can't theme. You can theme with libadwaita. It just isn't what you're supposed to do. Like, you can change the GTK style sheet. It works just fine.
There's so much misinformation out there like that. And another one, there was a video that I watched recently on the Steam Deck. And
I think I know
these people were reviewing it. And yeah, you've probably seen a lot of my tweets about stuff like this, actually. And if you're going to do a review months after everyone else has done it, at least get the fucking basic details about the system right. So these people said basically, if it hasn't gone through deck verification, Valve won't let you play that game on it.
Wait, did they review it without having a Steam Deck? Did they just not try
Yeah,
it?
it sounds like they've never even used it. But things like that annoy me, and I do find myself sometimes late at night. I'm on my phone, and I load up Twitter, and I go into the trending bit, and I go down to the Steam Deck section, and I just look at all the wrong information. And sometimes when I'm bored, I've just got to reply like, "This is all fucking wrong." And yeah, it annoys me. But what you can do, sometimes I get bored and I want to correct everyone's misinformation.
This is why I don't have Twitter on my phone, because I used to
It's bad.
to religiously use Twitter. It's a problem.
It is a problem. It is a problem. Although TikTok for me is more of a problem nowadays, but we won't talk about that.
I've opened up that app like 1 or 2 times. I'm just like, I don't understand Zoomer humor, and I closed it.
And honestly, I can be there and it'll be like 5 o'clock. I'll be going through. And then I'll look at the time, it's like midnight. I'm like, what? Yeah, so it's dangerous. Don't use TikTok, people. It's dangerous for your time.
But to be fair, I do watch quite a few YouTube shorts, so it's not much better. But my shorts algorithm has sort of been curated to useful things. It's mostly like science and engineering stuff. So I can convince myself that I'm not wasting time.
Yeah, you tell yourself that before, the hours start drifting by. YouTube Shorts is going to end up exactly the same as stuff like TikTok.
Yeah. Look, as long as the dancing stuff doesn't get anywhere near me, I'm good. I don't understand the appeal of that. What do you actually watch on TikTok? What has grabbed your attention?
I like a lot of like just funny animal videos and stuff like that. And because I've used it for quite a few hours now, it's where they, their algorithms and all
the
these
Chinese
things
data farm
learn
knows
what
exactly
you like.
who you are, yeah.
Yeah, so like most of my feed, I swear, is just animals doing really stupid things.
If they're good at
and I still sit there watching it for hours.
If they're like good at one thing, it is they have basically perfected the art of stealing your data and making it using it in a way to waste as much of your time as physically possible with the shortest the shortest content they can make, but somehow make you just keep going through more and more and more by showing you exactly what you want to see before you even know you want to see it.
The problem with stuff like YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram has it now as well. Facebook has it as well now. Is that the doom scrolling is a real thing. People want to keep scrolling, whether it's Twitter and so on. And that's when you go on these video things, then they are literally never ending. And I think that's where a lot of it comes in. There's a lot of lonely people out there that, need interactions. So
yeah, these sites have realized that you've got to hide pages. Like, pages need to be there for, functionality to make the site actually work properly, but they've got to be hidden pages. Yeah. You can't have a next page button. Next page buttons, they let people stop looking at stuff. And you don't want that. That's bad. You don't want people to realize for, even a moment that what they're doing is a waste of time. You want to make it as seamless as possible. Otherwise, they might question what they're doing. And you can't have that. That's bad. Questioning means less money. Less money is not good for investors.
Yeah, exactly.
What a world we live
in.
How
did we get onto TikTok from open source stuff?
I don't know. This is what happens on the show. I just let the tangents roll.
Yeah, never let me talk about TikTok again. I won't shut up about it. I think it's how me and some of my best friends now just communicate is like we're just sending TikToks to each other now. It's pretty bad. And I need to just throw this somewhere that I can't find it for a few days. I think it's bad.
Give yourself a TikTok detox.
I tell you what, that's interesting because I was thinking about this the other night of why another reason that I like playing games on stuff like the Steam Deck.
Mm-mm.
It's like having my phone, like scrolling through Twitter and so on my phone. It's there, it's in my hand, and you sort of feel a part of it, because you're there, you're with it. When you're gaming on a sofa, on a TV in front of you with a gamepad in your hand, it's a bit disconnected, and I feel the same when I'm here at my computer. But with the Steam Deck, you're there, sat with it, and it's weird to say, but you feel more connected to it because it's right there in your hands, right in front of your face, and you're there cuddling up in bed with it, and putting it to sleep and all that. Don't know where it's going with that.
No,
that sounded a bit weird. Tucking it in bed.
I think there might be something to that. Maybe this is just my nostalgia goggles, like, just taking over. But I remember, like, growing up. So my first handheld was a Game Boy Micro, which is like a terrible version of the Game Boy Advance. It's this. Do you know what a Game Boy Micro is? No one knows what this is. If you do, this
the
will be
Micro,
the first.
that is the rectangle one,
Does
isn't
know.
it? The little rectangle.
Yes, you're the first person who knows what the Micro is.
Man, I've had them all. Every single one of them. I started off on the not the very original Game Boy. I had the Pocket. So it was a black and white screen. You could barely see anything, but I had the one where the see-through casing as well.
Ah, yeah.
They need to bring back see-through casing on everything. Like, imagine if all your phones and the Steam Deck had see-through casings, so you see all the wires and the innards. It's so cool.
I'm going to show it to you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I've got my Zedison.
Yes, I like that.
My pair of you actually can't really see it. The camera's not focusing properly. Pair of Zedison Pros. They are very cheap. They're like $20, but they sound really good. No, I kind of do like see-through casing. It's certainly a look, that's for sure. But yeah, where I was going with this was thinking back on playing on that or playing on the Nintendo DS. There's something different about playing on something where it's like right in your hand. Because I've gone back and emulated like, DS games or emulated GBA games, and there's something different about it. Like, it's the same game. Arguably, it looks better. It's on a bigger screen, and because it's pixel art, you can, like, upscale it perfectly. But it doesn't feel the same. There's just something different about... You might be onto something with that disconnect there. I'd never really thought about it, but...
It's such a weird thing. Like, my main system is obviously Linux.
Yeah.
And I do the main gaming on Linux. But I do also have a Switch, a PlayStation 4, an Xbox Series X. I've got a Raspberry Pi. There's probably loads of other things that I'm forgetting about that are, stuffed in a drawer somewhere. I've got Stadia. I've got the Stadia controller and the Google Chrome thing. I've got, like, so many things, but I can't bring myself to play games on my Series X or my PlayStation, and I haven't even touched my Switch as well since getting the Steam Deck. But even when I had the Switch, I was playing a fair bit on it, but in handheld mode, even though it hurt because the stupid size of it sucks. Yeah, it's so weird. Like, it's hard to explain that kind of disconnect. I can't think of the right words for it. I think you have to... Anybody who's into handhelds will understand, I think. Anybody who's played and loved the Game Boy, the DS, and so on. It's even when I go on my PC. I mean, I've got this 2080 Ti. I could play Spider-Man on here, have it at 1080p, and looking pristine. In fact, I could put it on my 4K, which is next to me here, and have it look amazing. But I want to sit in bed and have it on this handheld,
I
and
think
run around slinging webs.
Part of that also might just be the comfort. Like, you look like you have a nice desk chair there. I'm sure it's comfortable enough. It looks like it's falling apart less than my chair. But there's something nice about just... I guess I've sort of I haven't had a handheld in that long. I guess I forgot what it was like to just lay down in bed and play a video game.
I'll tell you what, I've got a bit especially for this. I got a big giant beanbag in the
I've
corner, which
considered
is
getting one.
my Steam Deck corner. So I sit there, slide back, merge into it with a Steam Deck, and it's very nice. It's much nicer than sitting at a computer. Seriously,
Mm.
you should buy one. You'll have to import it from somewhere, being in Australia,
Yeah,
but
or
I'm sure you can find some way to do it.
I'm sure. Or, we'll see what happens with the Steam Deck 2 if they do one. Do you think the Valve's actually going to do you think they're going to continue with the Steam Deck? That's because I know some
Yeah.
people had different. You think so?
Yeah, so they've kind of hinted to it already. In some of the interviews that they've done, they were saying how they saw it as a multi-generational device.
Mm.
So give it maybe 3 years earliest, I would say 3 years earliest. I reckon we'll see a Steam Deck 2. I don't think any earlier than that would make enough sense, really, because it is a set design that I mentioned earlier on the hardware and the software, and they're still building up the ecosystem around it, getting developers invested in it, building up the Proton compatibility layer. I think any earlier than 3 years would just, I think, destroy a lot of what they've worked for. It'll be too soon.
Well, yeah, especially with the issues they've had with like getting devices out. There's going to be people that don't have them. There's probably still like another 2 years of waves. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so they've announced an expansion into Asia, and they're starting off in Japan. They also mentioned that everyone who had a previous reservation would get it this year. So whenever this announcement was, it was basically if you had a reservation before that date, you would definitely get it this year. And then they were saying like even new reservations, obviously up until a certain point, would also be able to get it this year. So they've ramped up their production either massively or they're covering up for, I don't know, like 200,000 pre-orders that disappeared. But it's more likely a case that they're building up their production up even more. So I think this time next year, we're going to have a really solid idea by then of what Valve are really doing with it, because they're probably shipping out from this month, probably a couple 100,000 a month, even for a week.
If they're expanding into Asia, well, Asia's pretty close. Surely we can expand out to Australia as well. That'd be nice.
And like places like Japan traditionally, love their handhelds as well. So I'm hoping it does well over there. Yeah, because obviously, if it does well and it keeps on doing well, it's good for me, good for content.
Yeah, I think with the terrible work culture Japan has and being stuffed into tiny trains, I think that's a place with a Steam. Like people already play a lot of mobile games there. Like mobile gacha games play in places like Asia. That's where they are born and thrive, and there's a reason for it because people have a lot of time where they are not doing anything and can't play a console game. A Steam Deck might kind of fit in that environment fairly well. I'm very curious to see how it's going to do in those regions.
I think it'll have another knock-on effect as well so only in the last few years we've seen more like Asian games come over to the West, where traditionally they've kind of kept to themselves a bit more, outside of like the obvious massive hits that come from Asian teams.
Like
but I think with stuff like this, but I think one of the knock-on effects of this is we'll not only see more of the Asian marketed games come over to the West and get translated as well. I think we'll have more of it be playable, well, hopefully on Linux as a result of it as well.
That would be
a lot of that though links into like anti-cheat again. Like there's a massive Asian gacha game. I'm trying to think of the name, but it's lost on me. But it's massively popular.
Genshin Impact.
You know it. You know the one, right?
Yes.
So you can't actually play it on Linux out of the box, although there is a way to
There
get
is
it
a
to
way
work.
to yes.
But my point is more like you might see games like that have their developers actually make it work officially. And I'm hoping it is, because games like that are huge. And it would be really nice if Steam Deck going into those markets will give that a boost, basically.
What is it using? It is using the same anti-cheat as Valorant. Wait, that's the one. Wait,
That's the kernel level stuff.
Yeah, that okay. You know
well,
what?
That'll
Genshin's
never work then.
That's that's not happening. I think Tower of Fantasy. That's the MMO that just came out, which is basically stole everything from Genshin. I think that's using, I want to say Jing code, which is that one that people use when they don't use EAC or Battle Eye.
That's one of the problems with the Asian market and Linux gaming as well. Is they have multiple of their own anti-cheats as well, because, well, again, they like to use their own homegrown stuff a lot of the time, and they keep it. So yeah, the Steam Deck has already caused an explosion for Linux gaming in so many ways, and now it's going into Asia as well. I'm hoping it has another effect there.
No, I think that actually could push those developers to try and support it. And look, if Genshin, for whatever reason, wanted to be supported on a Steam Deck, I'm sure they could convince them to do some stuff and see what happens. when you're Genshin, I don't know how high up on the list of makes too much money, but I'm pretty sure it's fairly high up there. It's not like Minecraft level, but it's like, probably within that top 10.
But then we've also got to still, at some point, win over Epic Games, because people like to complain about stuff like Fortnite, but it's still one of the biggest games in the world. And the only way to play it on Steam Deck is through streaming, which is not amazing, is it, really?
Streaming's fine if you don't need ping. And you need ping in a game like Fortnite. Like, you could play a game like, I'm playing through Stray right now on stream. Stray is a great game. And you can play it if, I don't know if it's like on any of the streaming services, but you could play it just fine through streaming. It wouldn't be the best experience, and, compression and all that fun stuff, but it's playable. I don't understand why there are competitive multiplayer games on the streaming services. It's just not really ever made any sense to me. I get it from, like, if you just want to play the game, but if it's just not a good experience of the game that you'll ever want to deal with.
Well, yeah, some of them can be okay, but the point is, it's never going to be even remotely as good as a locally installed game.
Okay, a competitive shooter is definitely, if it's something where it's competitive, but not, that same level of I guess micro movement. Like, you could probably stream StarCraft and it would be fine. You could stream Civilization and it would be fine. Definitely Civilization, but I think Rainbow Six Siege is available on streaming services, and just like, why? If you want to fine. If you want to do it, like, that's cool. But I know that I wouldn't ever want to play the game like that.
Yeah, the ping's always going to be an issue with stuff like that, which is why I hope that the Steam Deck just keeps on pushing. I hope there is going to be a Steam Deck 2, and I hope it brings even more companies and game developers, publishers, game stores over to Linux, like GOG.com. They had this wish list feature where you can wish list for games, but there was a wish list entry for GOG Galaxy on Linux. Now, originally, GOG said Galaxy was going to be on Linux, and they kind of never did it. But it was like, since it's been announced, it's been like the highest rated thing on their wish list. It had like, tens of thousands of votes on it or whatever, and there was like multiple entries.
33,199.
And there's clearly, plenty of interest in it. And in fact, for years, it had a note saying it was in progress, but they've just recently actually removed it because, well, it wasn't in progress. It was never in progress. They've been saying to me over emails forever, it's not happening. Like, that is their official stance. No, basically. And to sway companies like that as well. I've long said to so many people that we can have the greatest marketing we want for Linux. So Linux can be as stable and amazing as it can be. It doesn't fucking matter unless there are hardware shipping with it. That is what matters. We've needed more hardware vendors for years. And this is why the Raspberry Pi was such a good thing. Because people are keeping Linux on that. And you see people using Linux on a Pi for so many amazing things. Like now they've come out, with a little keyboard Pi computer, like an all-in-one. And people are just keeping it as Linux on that. And then, but historically we've had a problem of, you can buy laptops and stuff with Linux, but they've been almost always at like the high end where not a lot of people will buy it. Although System 76 have been doing really well with that because, they seem to be expanding constantly, like building up their factory bigger and bigger. So they're obviously doing well. And they don't just sell the high-end stuff. They sell the mid and lower stuff as well, which is really good. But that is the point of the Steam Deck. It is a piece of hardware with Linux shipping ready on it out of the box. We need more of it, basically. We've always needed more of it.
I don't know if you heard about this, but I know that Lenovo is expanding their line of Linux laptops. I think this year or next year they're planning to do that.
Yeah, they said that, and then has anybody heard from them since?
I think this was a more recent announcement actually. Maybe it was something that just popped up in my feed. Lenovo expand.
Because I do remember them saying they were going to be expanding, but then I don't think anybody heard from them since. But then you had the HP Dev 1 with Pop OS, which I've got, which is a really nice little laptop.
Yeah, I fully agree that, like, I've been saying this for a while as well, that if you want people to be using Linux, you need OEMs. You cannot just rely on people installing Linux because, frankly, people do not install operating systems. I know there are going to be some boomers who were using using a computer in the 80s, and you install stuff and all that fun. People don't do that. Computers are a general consumer device that people just want it to be as simple as possible. I know people literally today running Windows 7. Normal people do not, and not gamers who are like, I just want to keep using Windows 7. People who don't know what an operating system is, they just know they're using Windows. Normal people do not install operating systems with the exception of macOS. The reason why macOS is an exception is because Apple does the Android thing and the iOS thing where they treat it like a system update. So it's like, hey, I don't know what the current version of macOS is. Let's just say we're going from like 10.14 to 10.15. It's just a thing that happens. It's not like a big deal. It's not like Windows 7 to Windows 8. Everything changes. It's like, well, it's just here now. Enjoy. It's fine.
Yeah. We need
Microsoft
hardware shipping Linux out of the box. That's it. It's as simple as that. So I've had arguments like on Twitter, as you do, with people who think who think they know how to solve all the problems. And a lot of them are people who think we need better marketing. We need marketing. No, we don't. You can't market something that just isn't there for people to get. You need the hardware first. But another point of that is what you were saying. People don't know how to install operating systems a lot of the time. People don't even know what they're running when it comes to like the masses. They just think, oh, it's a PC. And that's as far as like the knowledge goes.
Yeah, well,
but we have this problem on Linux as well. So even though we've got the Steam Deck now, hundreds of thousands of people by now already have it. It doesn't run Windows, it runs SteamOS Linux. And developers can either do a native Linux build, or they will have their Windows game, run through Proton. But a problem here is that a lot of game developers and publishers don't understand any of that. And I could give you an example just from today. So I get a lot of emails, obviously,
Sure,
from publishers and developers saying, "Hey, we've got a new game coming. Do you want to check it out?" And I reply a lot of the time. And now I've had to tweak what I say now to incorporate like the Steam Deck and so on. And so there was one, and I simply said, "Okay, do you have?" Ooh, punch in my microphone. So I said to them, "Right, do you have any plans to have it compatible on Linux with Proton and the Steam Deck?" And their reply was basically, "We don't have anything to share regarding a Proton or Linux release, but we're submitting our games through Steam Deck verification." So okay, so Proton basically, like, they don't even know what they're doing when through Steam Deck verification. Because everything is still PC.
Mm.
And it's coming out to PC. It's going to be on PC. What about this one? Oh, it's going to be on PC. Okay, but what about Steam Deck? Is it running through Proton? We don't know. We're putting it through Deck verification. And so it's still a problem that things like that need to cut through the noise a bit more. And I think, again, this time next year, a lot more people will understand all the ins and outs of it. And I think we'll have a lot more developers testing their games with Proton as well. Or, pie in the sky, a couple of years' time, might be building for Linux directly. But until then, as long as it works and tested through Proton and it's supported like that, that's the main thing. But we got to get developers to even understand what the hell Proton is, apparently, because loads in my email don't even know what Proton is.
Can I just say, I want the PC equals Windows thing to just fucking die. It's one thing if you just don't know Linux exists, fine. But if you know Linux exists and you say PC as Windows, stop. PC literally means personal computer. It does not mean Windows.
That is a hill I'm going to die on. Seriously. I get so annoyed by it. I reply to hundreds of emails every week, and it's always, it's coming to Steam. Or it's coming to PC. So I have to reply and be, well, it's doing it less and less nowadays because Proton's just getting to the point where I can just go, yeah, I'll have a key, and it'll probably work now.
Yeah.
But still, a hill I will die on just for clean communication. It's not a PC. It's not PC. You don't install PC on your PC, do you? You don't update PC on your PC. You update Windows or Linux or whatever. I'm gonna die on that hill one day. I think the hill might murder me, to be honest.
I'm gonna look. If you die on the hill, I'll just join you up there. It's all good. There's got to be someone on this hill.
There's always going to be someone to fight for a cause, no matter what it is.
With the games mostly working, I think that's generally true. Like just looking at Proton DB, or just actually what I've done, I've got my my Steam library sorted into the Proton DB categories. So like the old categories, not the new ones. Whatever. Where it's like platinum, gold, all that. And I bought most of my library when I was on Windows, and most of it was just gold. I was like, okay. There was like, I think I had like 10 games that were bronze. I don't think I had anything that was balked. I don't play multiplayer games, so that's why. But just randomly buying games, and most things would mostly run. And that was, I did this sorting a while back, so things have probably changed. That's impressive. Like, that's genuinely impressive, like, the state that Linux gaming is in. There are some exceptions. There are certain games which break for... I'm not actually sure the reason why it's broken, but Persona 5 Strikers is completely balked. It has cutscene issues, and then also the graphics don't load. But Atlas games generally, especially Persona games, generally have issues, which makes me very worried for when Royal comes to Steam. Maybe it'll be fine, but most things are good.
So that's another one of the hurdles. So it's not just anti-cheat. You've got the video codec problem, which has been a problem for so long now. But slowly, Valve are getting around it. So like Wine is being updated to work with Windows Media Foundation. Had to remember the name then. A little bit more, with every release. Like the very latest Wine release had a note in that, in their release notes about more games working with Windows Media Foundation, and they are getting there. And one of the systems they put in was like they re-encode the videos into a format that works with Wine and Proton. Okay. So once more people have played it and they've re-encoded it and sent it to people, you'll see more things like that work. And that's again why I'm hoping and praying that more developers will test their games beforehand, because then they can see the videos don't work and either redo the videos themselves or give Valve time to get the videos re-encoded into a different, more open format.
The cutscene one, there's no excuse for that one. It's not like, you need to have these videos in this code. You don't need it. It works. Like, maybe if we're talking games that are like 15, 20 years old, fine. Maybe there wasn't something better. But if your game is coming out in 2022, if random indie games can work this out, I'm sure your multi-$100 million company can work this out. It's not that difficult.
Again, it's the whole PC, Windows equals PC thing.
Yeah.
The developers are ingrained in the Microsoft and Windows APIs, and hopefully we'll get them away from it.
It's not entirely bad. Like, I do agree with something said earlier with the Win32 API basically being the stable Linux API at this point for gaming. As long as things... It's not perfect, obviously, but, like... That's not completely bad. The fact that we have something where devs can target, and it can... if they do a bit of testing, it can work, is good. And I think it's definitely a much better state than we could be, and that's for sure. It's much better state than, everything having to be native or just not being functional.
Yeah, Valve were obviously planning Proton for quite a long time, and the Steam Deck as well, and they've solved the original problem that they had with the Steam Deck. So it's no wonder it's been so successful. The fact that you can just load up a game, whether you're on a Linux desktop or a Steam Deck, and you probably got like a 95% chance that it will just work. And that is a truly amazing place for Linux gaming to be in right now.
Absolutely. Well, let's go like sort of all... I didn't... Usually I do this at the start. We're going to do it now. What actually got you into Linux? Like, because you started way earlier than I did.
Yeah, so I would have been 15, I think, getting close to 16. And my granddad, who passed away recently, bought me my very first actual computer that was my own. And it didn't have Windows on it. So he went on a website called eBuyer, which probably a lot of people know. And for some reason, they were selling desktops with, at the time it was Mandrake, a Linux distribution called Mandrake, which then eventually became Mandriva, and I don't even know if it's around anymore. But like, I loaded it up, and I was like, "What the hell is this? Like, what? Nothing I want works on it. What is this? What is Linux?" And it just I went from there, because I wasn't always like attached to Windows anyway growing up, because I grew up with stuff like the Amiga, Acorn, and loads of other different types of systems. So I already knew that different types of systems existed And because it was now on a computer that I owned, that was mine, I started messing around with it, seeing what it could do. And like every year or so, I would go back and maybe install a different distribution until I think Ubuntu came along, which is why Canonical and Ubuntu always do hold a special place in my heart. And I'm sure it is the same for a lot of people. When the first few versions of Ubuntu came out, they were making things easier than basically any other distribution at the time. And from there, I just tried sticking with it, really. I always sort of had Ubuntu, I think, on a dual boot from then for basically ever, almost, really. So, yeah.
Well,
that's kind of the story in a nutshell there, really, I think.
So what was your... I presume you're 15-year-old, probably gaming. What was your... I presume you weren't trying to game on that system yet, or maybe you were trying out some of the open source games. What were you doing back then? What was your plan?
There was stuff like Frozen Bubble and stuff like that, little open source games which I was trying out. But I was also like learning PHP, web coding and all that anyway. So I started trying to do a little bit of that on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, really, how much trust and faith you put in other people online when you're a lot younger. So back when Fedora was originally called Fedora Core, and it was Fedora Core 1, then Fedora Core 2. This is going back, a long time ago now. I didn't really know how to set it all up. So at one point, I had downloaded Fedora Core, it must have been 2 or 3, possibly. I managed to install it, but I didn't really know how to set anything up. But someone online was like, I'll log into your system remotely and I'll set it up all for you. And I was like, I'm maybe 16, 17 at the time, maybe. And I was like, okay. And so I just watched them on my computer doing all this stuff. And you look back at it and you think, that was a really bad idea. They could have done anything on it.
Yeah, I've got plenty of my own stories about doing stupid things as a kid. A lot of them involved being dumb on RuneScape. I fell for a lot of scams. There's a reason why I have a distrust of grifters online. RuneScape is a big part of that. Well, so from there, at some point you started gaming on Linux, like the website, not Linux gaming. When did that happen?
So I followed maybe 2 or 3 other Linux gaming sites at the time. And one of them was linuxgames.com, and I started contributing to that one a little bit here and there. And just really, I was looking at all these sites and I thought I could do better. Like, none of them were really updated very often, and there wasn't much to them even when they were updated. And I really just genuinely looked at them and thought, I could probably do better. Like, I know how to make websites. And so that was it. That was literally the reason. I saw a few others not really doing anything, and I thought, well, I'm going to do it better. And to this day, 12, 13 years later, I'm here and none of them are.
Yeah.
So
I think that says a lot. Like, you've put out, like, how many articles do you... Okay, I was going to say how many articles you put out a week, and I see you put out, like, what's...
Well...
How many did you put out today?
Today, I think about 7.
Okay.
Well, like, since the 1st of July until, say, yesterday, I've done 198.
Okay.
But then that's on top of quite a lot of videos on the YouTube channel as well. So. But I mean, it sounds like a lot.
It does.
A lot of it is just general news tips. So it's not like I'm reviewing heavily, in depth, a lot of games and hardware and so on.
Sure.
A lot of what Gaming Linux is just keeping people up to date in, a central location of news tips, of news and new games coming out and so on. rather than people following, so I follow probably about 400 RSS feeds and loads of things on top of that to gather all the news together. And like, we're so established now that developers and publishers come to me to tell me the things. So then I put it out to everyone else. And so, yeah, I mean, it all comes together. But I think some people don't quite understand that. Like, especially Reddit. Okay, Reddit.
I was gonna ask you about Reddit or someone, because I know that, is it Linux Gaming that doesn't like you?
No, it's so I don't get along with Linux Gamecast because we have a bit of a history there. There's also the person behind Boiling Steam. We don't really get along together. But I get a lot. I try to get along with everyone. It's just sometimes people have an issue with me and they can't seem to get over it. Yeah, but Reddit's like, people on Reddit are very tribal. I find incredibly tribal. Like, some people, like, being on Reddit is their whole online persona. It's what they're all about, and they call it like blog spam and low effort and so on. But they're missing the point on what it is. It's a place to just go and get news. It's not necessarily really long in-depth reviews. If you want to keep up with the latest in Linux gaming, Steam Deck, open source gaming, and so on, and you don't want to read, something like this long forever, you want your short news tips and so on, which is why we are so popular. Some people just want to click through things and know what's where, and I think that's why, in a way, it is as successful as it is.
I've definitely experienced the same stuff with like some of my videos. Like, a lot of the time, like when I'm looking at individual pieces of software, it's one thing, but when it's taking some whatever news topic that's happening, you'll get the comments like 3 minutes of content for a 10-minute video. It's like, shut up, make the video yourself then. And what's actually happening is it's like a couple of hours of research going over all of these different things, like all of these different things in all these different places where everyone's got their own sort of take on it. I'm just trying to, like, I guess, bring it down into a digestible form. And most people understand. Like, most people are good. Like, I'm sure that most of the comments you get as well are positive or arguing about something that doesn't matter. And you're just like, what are you doing? But you always get that, like, one or two people that think that their opinion is far more important than anything else in the world, and Reddit is a boiling pot for all of those people to live and thrive together and feed off of each other's energy.
Yeah, it is a hive of scum and villainy.
Yeah, I've gotten to that point now where occasionally I get posted about on r/Linux or any of the subreddits.
r/Linux, my favorite part of Reddit. I'm banned from there.
What did you do?
Well, not only am I banned from there, Gaming on Linux as a whole is completely banned from r/Linux.
What happened there?
Right, where do I start on that one? Well, so the like main moderator of r/Linux really doesn't like me, and so Gaming on Linux was banned from it. Like, Phoronix is banned from it as well. Oh my god, Ubuntu is banned from it. Like, quite a lot of domains that they claim is just pure blog spam. They just have outright banned the domains, so you can't post them. But I got annoyed because even though a lot of what I do is just general news tips, I also get a lot of unique information, whether that's quotes from developers, interviews, and so on. And what annoyed me, I got really annoyed one day because while we're banned, there was a completely different website that basically took everything that I done and put it in their own article and sourced me and linked back to me in the article. And they're allowed on it, and I'm not, even though Reddit they have a thing about going to the original source. So it's like, right, okay, so they're going to this website who sourced me. They're allowed there. I'm not. So I put a comment. I tagged the moderator. But because I tagged the moderator in public, because I was just trying to highlight and generate a discussion on why that's allowed but we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else called Capname, who I'm sure a lot of people on Reddit will know.
Yeah. Okay.
Capname came along, said that I was harassing the moderator for tagging them in public. I was like, no. And then we had a bit of back and forth. And then Capname basically got promoted to be a moderator over the argument with me, and then banned me from that Reddit as well. And I've never been unbanned since. So
if I recall, there was a post a while back where I think they tried to get him removed as a mod. I think ultimately he got removed or something. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, Capname got removed from the R Linux Reddit as a moderator because they have issues. Like I don't get people that are so power mad like that. Like they were really power hungry, and you could just see it in everything that they do.
I think
it's crazy.
Well, when Reddit is your personality, and then you basically become a Reddit god, it can very quickly go to your head. But the fact that, like, I don't know how you can call, like, OMG Ubuntu makes no sense as blog spam. Like, Joey does amazing work on, like, I don't use Ubuntu, but occasionally, like, I'll see something on this site, and, like, Joey does great work on this site, and then Phoronix is the same. Like, Michael does great work on this side as well. I don't understand. Sure, it's a lot of, like, it's a lot of, you know, hey, this is an update for something, but it's stuff that a lot of people aren't going to see unless you're following, like, the mailing list for glibc or the mailing list for Wine,
yes,
things like that.
That is it.
Yeah,
that's
it brings
exactly
it into one place.
And that's the exact argument that I have with people who don't understand the difference between a review and a news tip,
mm-hmm.
and how both of them have a very valuable place online. And it's the same for Phoronix. Phoronix covers a lot of the really techno stuff that nobody is really going to know has changed, probably, unless he's put a note about it.
Mm-mm-mm.
But Reddit doesn't get that, so they will just go, here's a link to what mailing list it came from, this is blog spam, send comment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't get along with Reddit very often.
I tend to source, like, occasionally, you know, things will go through there, and there are a lot of topics that I'll source from Reddit, but no, I do agree that Reddit it's, I think some subreddits sometimes are sometimes good, but as a general whole, as a general platform, I don't think it's that healthy of a way to have a discussion. Especially when everything is...
The smaller and more focused the community is, generally the nicer it is.
And the fact that everything is tied to a number. Like, your upvotes are very clearly visible. You want to get... it. I guess it could be worse. You could have a character limit like Twitter, and then it would be nothing but hot takes. So I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Imagine if Twitter had a Reddit, like... I guess it does. It has likes. I take back what I said. Twitter is way worse.
Actually, you say that, but are you on Android or iOS?
Yeah, I've got an Android device over here.
Okay, so they've actually rolled out...
Oh no, what are you going to tell me?
I'm just going to show a random thing here. But there are upvote and downvote buttons on Twitter now as well.
I don't use Twitter. What? I use on... Wait, is that only on mobile right now?
It's probably right now one of those things that they test on iOS first.
Okay.
But it's also only on replies. It's not on the main post. Main posts still only have the like.
Okay.
And I don't mind systems that use likes, but downvote systems, I hate them because they bring out people that want to be right and demand to be right and will argue it and beat you up with experience on pretending to be right. And, you know, it's a trolls playground, basically. And I hate it.
Twitter doesn't need anything more for it to be that. It's already bad enough.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, before we get too sidetracked by that, when it comes to your articles, so what actually just pick some random article. Let's say this Spider-Man one here. What would actually go into each article you write? Like, what is your general workflow?
It honestly depends what it is. I mean, some of them, even when they look as basic as they are, can still have quite a lot of time behind them, because what people don't see is chatting with the developers and the publishers about any issues or whether it's supported or not. And, it's things like that. People don't see that side of it. But it's also the fact that slightly less now because of just how busy I am. But I always have a thing of something that I'm writing about. If it's already available, I will go and just actually test it and make sure it works, whether it's an app or a game. Like every single update to things like the Heroic Games Launcher or the Wine Manager bottles, every single update, before I even just say, hey, this update is out, I'll load it up, install something in it, and check it works still.
Yep.
And I chat to, the developers behind these projects all the time about, any bugs that I come up with and like feature requests and so on. And yeah, so even something that might seem on the surface like a basic news tip about a new release of something, 90% of the time I'm going behind the scenes and testing that anyway.
How long would it generally take you for each of your articles?
It could be anything from 5 minutes to hours or days, really. It depends what.
Well, yeah, obviously for like
not
a review is
something
much longer.
Yeah, it's not something you can just pin a figure on like that, because
Okay.
it's such a varied thing.
Okay. That makes sense. I thought you might have had like, I don't know. I've spoken to some people, like I think it was Nicolo V, the KDE dev, has a YouTube channel, and that is a giant bottle of Pepsi. We don't have bottles of Pepsi like that here. How big is that?
It's taller than my head.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's 2 liters.
Wait, it's 2.
Gets you through the day.
I guess it. Oh no, it is. Oh, it's just a skinnier. We have like a wider bottle. Okay, sure.
Yeah, we don't get those fat bottles. We just get tall, wide, like thin bottles.
Okay, it was just throwing me off. I've spoken to some people, and like they have this like every part of their day is like fully planned out, like down to the minute. They've got like Pomodoro timers. They work and they have their 5-minute break, then go back to work, and it's just like, I can't do that. That's not me.
See, I'm really bad with things like that. So I basically have a rolling to-do list, and if I look at this to-do list now, I'm scrolling back from today. There's ones going back to the 10th of May that I haven't done yet.
Comrade.
And there's ones that are before that don't have a date on that I've missed, and they're in my missed items to do section.
Yep.
So getting to some of these can take absolutely months. I'm really behind on some things, but some of them are things that I just want to do that I might get around to eventually, that I might keeping around for a rainy day sort of thing. But yeah, there's no pinpoint time that an article or even a video will take me, because I'm not calendaring down my time like that. I mean, especially because I'm in the UK, and I'm sure a good 99% of what I write about is in US time, because like most developers seem to live and work in the US.
Yeah.
Or they don't, but they still work to those times anyway because of Steam, and Steam has its big set releases at like 6 p.m. usually my time. And so there are times, I'm not kidding you, where I will check my phone at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'll have to get out of bed, come down and start an article or a video or something. It can be a bit killer with the time zones. That's the only thing. So sometimes I'm like rolling out of bed midday because I was up until like 3 in the morning working.
Yeah, so, I've committed to. I have stuff out when I have it out. It's gonna go up at the same time. I don't care if it's like, I don't know, 12 hours old. That's fine by me. Because I have the same problem. Where US prime time is like, I think it's maybe like 8 in the morning for me. That's usually when I'm like rolling out of bed. So if I want to get something done, like just before that, I would have to be up all night. It's like that's not gonna happen. Maybe if I was just
Yeah,
doing YouTube, I would. But like as it stands, I'm happy to just have it be a little bit late. It's good.
yeah.
Also, I don't do
I
multiple
have
things a day.
absolutely no strict schedule.
Mm. I'm happy I finally speak to someone who also has no idea what they're doing. They just like it just happens to work out. They make it work.
The way I see work is the same way as I see my life. Everything is just YOLO. I'm completely winging
Yup.
everything that I do.
Like how did I become the biggest like gaming Linux news site? I don't know. It happened.
Yeah, it's like on Twitter, I've got like over 50,000 followers now, and it's like that's quite a bit of power that I have to be careful with on what I tweet. Yeah, it's a bit weird thinking that I have like that much influence in some ways.
Yeah, just don't think about it. It's a bad idea.
Well, I like to think about it because I like to think that in a lot of ways I'm a good influence. I try to be a good influence. Not about people's wallets, because people end up buying a lot of games because of it. But try and be responsible.
Yeah, don't just I don't know. I probably think of a bunch of dumb things. Jumping in on like any drama that's happening, for example.
Oh yeah, I do that though. That's really
Okay,
bad.
well,
And
yeah.
stop doing that.
Yeah, sure, but there's
But
there's plenty more drama you could jump in.
I mean, I could tweet a poop emoji right now and not say anything about it and just leave it there, and that's then going out to over 50,000 people in their feed, just a poop emoji. In fact, I'm going to do that just for people watching this show, right? So, if you see a poop emoji, it came about as a result of this show. There it is. Right, done. And you heard it here first. I have too much responsibility, and I'm terrible with it.
Oh my god. You know what? That's if we're gonna end it anywhere, I think that's as good a time to end it.
Poop emoji
Poop
for the win.
emoji. Well, let people know where they can find your stuff, where they can find you, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, just GamingOnLinux.com, GamingOnLinux on Twitch and YouTube. Easy enough.
Awesome. Do you have anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to mention?
Buy a Steam Deck and keep me in business.
Yeah. Okay, well, as for me, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there. Generally, it's other tech stuff every so often. The gaming channel is Brody Robertson Plays. I'm probably done with Stray and DMC at this point. I don't know what I'm playing right now, actually. You'll find out. Maybe I'm playing a JRPG, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm probably playing Kingdom Hearts. We'll work it out when we get there. And if you're listening to the audio version of this, the video version is available on YouTube at Tech Over Tea, and the audio version is available basically anywhere you can find podcasts, RSS feed, iTunes, all that fun stuff. What? Yeah, I know. I already retweeted it.
Poop emoji.
Poop emoji. Cool. I'll give you the last word. What do you want to say?
Thanks for listening.
I'm out.